It's just, for the multiple choice, it's really easy. And it will also help you in physio, because in physio you're going to go into more detail than all of this. Like you're going to go into more specifics. But if you have which one, like if you know which one's increasing and which one's decreasing, then it makes it all easier. Because you'll know, okay, this is this, this is this, this is this. Because it gets like cray cray. Okay, this one, just know here we're going to have heart rate, BP, more relaxed, right? And then the pupils will be constricted.
That one's also S2 to S4, correct?
Yeah, it's going to be the S2 to S4, right? So you have your cranial nerves, right? And then S2 to S4. And when you see this S2 to S4, this T1 to L2, these are vertebrae, okay? So we're looking at our thoracic vertebrae all the way to the lumbar, all right? And then here we're sacral, okay? I remember I was like confused on that for a while, I don't know why. But let's see. For the parasympathetic, just remember the target's going to be the inside wall of organs. Inside wall of organs.
Is that the intramural?
Intramural,
Yes.
exactly.
So what?
Yep, intramural.
That's the tummy?
Intramural. This is basically just saying that the target is the inside walls.
That's where it can snap.
So what's the target? What's the target then?
Hmm?
The target for the sympathetic. Oh,
Yeah.
where it's
Yeah, this is where it's synapsing.
Oh, yeah.
Okay?
Oh, that's
If you want a little bit more detail, so when you hear the word prevertebral, going back to the sympathetic, prevertebral, what that means is it's before the collateral ganglia. It's before that, the celiac, the superior mesenteric, the inferior mesenteric, that's prevertebral. Okay? Prevertebral is before the superior mesenteric, the inferior mesenteric, and the celiac trunk. Okay? There are 0 ganglia where the adrenal gland is. There isn't any ganglia where the adrenal gland is. It's the suprarenal medulla, remember? Okay?
And that's for both?
No, this is all for the sympathetic. Because remember, there is no norepinephrine in the parasympathetic. Because norepinephrine is what's going to increase this.
Right.
There's no ganglia. So no ganglion where the adrenal gland is. Okay? And then if she asks you, like, if you want to know where, like, the paravertebral is, it would be before the sympathetic chain. That's all I have on it. I don't know if you'll get that much detail. As far as your preganglionic neurons, they come from the lateral gray horn. Okay? They come from the lateral gray horn because both of these are dealing with what? Somatic response, or autonomic responses, right? Visceral responses. Preganglionic neurons. So when I'm talking about preganglionic neurotransmitters, the neurons come from the lateral gray horn, they enter the ventral root, right? And then you have the preganglionic neurotransmitters, okay? The preganglionic neurotransmitters in both systems are acetylcholine. Acetylcholine. This will be multiple choice. You need to know, if she asks you which system has preganglionic neurotransmitter acetylcholine, you need to know, is the answer parasympathetic, sympathetic, or is it both? It's going to be both. Okay? Because only in the sympathetic, in the postganglionic, will you have norepinephrine. So, and then just know, I would know a little bit of the breakdown. So, know the word cholinergic, okay? That's when it's acetylcholine only, it's cholinergic, okay? So if she asks you which system is only cholinergic, you know the answer is the parasympathetic. Cholinergic. So you have this acetylcholine, right? And my spelling's probably way wrong, but it's like something like this. Okay, so you have acetylcholine, okay? And you need to know where you only have acetylcholine will be cholinergic. Cholinergic. Okay? This is more physio-based. Acetylcholine plays a really big part in action potentials. Okay, you're going to learn all about it, how like when it's traveling down the bouton of the neuron, it's going to basically cause the calcium-gated channels to open. Calcium's then going to come in, bind with this acetylcholine, and then it's going to exit via exocytosis out to the next inner space between, and then it's going to cause depolarization and an action potential in the next neuron until it gets to the effector, which is what? The next neuron. What did I say effectors are, guys? What's an effector? Skeletal muscle is an example of one effector. What's another one?
Cardiac.
Smooth muscle, cardiac muscle, gland, right? Okay, you need to know that. That could be multiple choice.
So cholinergic is only in.
It's in both. Cholinergic is in both, in the pre. The pre of both.
Because that's
But
caused by the
in the
disease.
parasympathetic, it's only cholinergic because it doesn't have norepinephrine.
So for
Okay.
pre, it's
Pre is both acetylcholine cholinergic.
No, which one's
Okay?
Wait,
Which one's yours?
Adrenergic.
Oh, which one?
Adrenergic will be in the postganglionic of the sympathetic
That one's
division.
mine.
Nine
Sorry.
point one.
I thought you were asking me.
Post.
It's okay. I was asking you originally.
It's not in the parasympathetic. Adrenergic.
How do you spell
Is
your
that
name?
just for physio?
Okay.
It could be. It could be on here.
Oh.
It's possible. I mean, I would say it might be. It could be a multiple choice. These are my notes from anatomy. These aren't my notes from physio. So if I have it in my notes from anatomy, it's fair game.
3, 1.
So
Thank you.
cholinergic is pre.
Cholinergic will be pre only. And if she asks you which system is only cholinergic, the answer would be parasympathetic. And then if she asks you which system is both cholinergic and adrenergic, the answer is sympathetic. Okay? Just know things like that.
So because pre.
I would say if she wanted to be really tough, adrenergic breaks down into, like I said, there's beta receptors and alpha receptors. Alpha's both norepinephrine and epinephrine. Beta's only epinephrine.
Can you repeat the treatment?
Yeah, so here, where you have postganglionic fibers, it's going to be adrenergic. Postal. And why is it adrenergic? Because it's adrenaline. It's from the adrenal gland. Okay? So that's why we call it adrenergic. Okay? That's it. And then if you really want to know it, adrenergic breaks down into alpha and beta. So B and A. A is going to have both norepinephrine, norep plus epinephrine. Okay? Beta will only have epinephrine. Sorry, I know it's sloppy, but that's if you want to go like crazy. Did she mention anything about muscarinic and nicotinic with you guys?
No.
That's more physio. I wouldn't worry about that yet. You'll get that later. Muscarinic and nicotinic has to do more with like other neurotransmitters like dopamine, things like that, okay? Serotonin, okay? Don't worry about that right now. It's too much. But if you can memorize this chart, you'll be fine.
I'm sorry, I wasn't reading that bottom part. And
Okay,
I don't
so-
understand what's written.
Okay, sorry, that's sloppy. It's okay. My fifth graders tell me all the time, so. All right, so my post,
Do you teach them or tutor them?
I teach them.
You teach 5th graders?
Yeah,
Oh, wow.
so that's what I do Monday through Friday. That's where I'm going right after this. Kind of like crazy, but it's all right. Yeah.
After school parents?
Hmm?
After school parents?
Mm-hmm. So I'm like partnered up with their actual teachers, and I have to, because I wasn't sure if I wanted to be a nurse or a teacher. So I decided I landed this gig, and I was like, okay, cool, this is legit. And so I was working at an elementary school last year, and then this year I've been working at more elementary school too. So I have 5th and 6th graders right now, and then I just got to do 8th grade, which was pretty cool. Because like they have like really amazing kids are amazing. Like as far as, especially growing up now,
Mm-hmm.
like holy crap.
Yeah, that
My sister's in 8th grader I know, she always talks about science.
Yeah, oh yeah, it's awesome. Like, a lot of them really like it. I mean, of course, like I was teaching about Homo sapiens the other day and I got a lot of immature responses. But, you know, I still try. There are those kids out there. You know, you're just, yes, I got one. Then you see the ones, if you're like me, you see the ones that remind you of your youth and you're just like, get yourself together right now. I think I told him I wanted to tell a fifth grader to get his shit together, but I couldn't. All right, so going back here. In the postganglionic fiber, in the sympathetic system, you're going to have norepinephrine. Norepinephrine comes from which gland? The adrenal glands, okay? So norepinephrine, in this case, because we're talking about the neurotransmitter, in this case, we're just really talking about what it's doing. So because it's increasing your blood pressure, increasing your heart rate, dilating your pupils, we call it adrenergic, like adrenaline, okay? Because it's like a rush of adrenaline. Does that make sense? Okay? Adrenergic is going to break down into two types of receptors. So you're going to have alpha receptors and you're going to have beta receptors. The alpha receptors are going to involve both epinephrine and norepinephrine. The beta receptors are only going to have epinephrine. I don't know if you need that much detail. I had it in my notes, I don't know why, so she must have went on a tangent, I don't know. Our class asked a lot of questions, lots of questions, so sometimes we got way more than we needed.
Well, we just went over that today, so I don't know.
You might not see it.
We didn't go into detail.
Okay, so she might stay clear of it. It really, what I noticed about her, and it depends on the class. If you guys ask things and you talk about things in lecture, it is fair game for you guys. Anything that gets brought up in lecture is 100% fair game.
Yeah, because we didn't talk about anything. We asked after lecture about more of the pathways.
Yeah, so if you're asking pathways, then she's going to throw pathways.
She went into great detail after class with whoever stood here about pathways.
Okay, cool. We're going to go, do we want to do a mock practicum?
Yeah.
Okay, so we're going to do that, and I also, does anybody want to volunteer to come up if I give you a problem, and you guys can work together to do pathways of, let's say, tracking pathway of light, tracking pathway of, let's just say something entering the ear,
Yes.
right? So that way we can make sure that you know these structures and the correct pathway, because those are probably going to be word problems. I think I realized the other day that I gave you guys the word problem was from the next chapter, because I was like, wait a minute, I don't think you guys run into like the scalp and the periosteum. Well, kind of. I just remember, I know there's one that had vision, right? Here we go, yeah. So it must have been this one. Okay, so here was an example of one. I had a pathway, right? And I got 4.5 out of 5 on this one. I think I got a little wrong. I messed up one of the receptors. Okay? Basically, the question was something along this. You find yourself in a room. The room is filled with smoke. What is the pathway with the nervous system? Okay, so you have to kind of break down this question and understand, okay, you're breathing in smoke, so what's the response? If this room started to fill with smoke, what are we going to do? We're going to leave, right? But it starts with breathing in that smoke and being alerted by it, right? So I had that smoke enters the nasal cavity, okay? And then it's going to hit the olfactory epithelium, okay? Then I had that it's going to come into contact with the cribriform plate, okay? This is where I missed my one. Then I said it's going to come in contact with that olfactory bulb, but I put chemoreceptors are stimulated, so it must have been a different receptor, okay? It was a different receptor. So probably, I think it's a mechanical receptor, right, for the nose?
That's movement.
Hmm?
I think it would, yeah, it would.
I had chemo, but she scratched that. That was my one that I got wrong.
She didn't list.
She never gives you the correct answer. So she scratched chemoreceptor stimulated.
Would it be special?
Maybe. Oh, you know what? I think you're right. I think olfactory is special. I think it is special. Yeah, because it's in, yeah, so it would have been special receptor. That's right. No, you're right. Okay, yeah, so anyways, it should be special receptor stimulated. Then we're going to come into contact with which cranial nerve? One, olfactory, right? Okay. What interprets smell? And you learned this last week. What brain structure interprets smell?
Insula.
Insula, okay? So I put the insula interprets smell as smoke. Okay, now you have to understand now all of what's been happening has been that sensory, that part that we first started with. It was sensory, right? Okay, now she wants to know what are we going to do about it. So this is the part where we're going to come down the white column.
So is she giving you all of these options?
Lonnie usually gives you them, right?
Yeah.
They're usually labeled.
Yeah,
I'm assuming this is labeled. Yeah.
Okay.
So okay. So what I had for number 7 after the instilla interpret smell of smoke, I have 7 descending white column motor. Okay. Synapse. Number 8, I have synapse at anterior horn, which we already know is motor, right? Because what did I tell you? What's our action? To get the hell out of Dodge. So now we need to move, right? So it's a voluntary act response. So anterior horn motor to leave. Okay. 9. So now we're in the anterior motor, or anterior horn. 9, ventral rootlets. 10, ventral root. 11, spinal nerve. 12, because we need to innervate these ones that are in the front, ventral ramus. And then it travels down to the lumbosacral plexus to leave the area. That was it. Because we need to move our legs to get out of Dodge. Okay.
Is tactical also
Tactile receptors are going to be more surface. So if something touches you, right? Like touch, right?
so
That's
would that
tactile.
also be phasic?
Hmm?
Would that also be a phasic?
Tactile is phasing.
It is.
It'll phase away.
Okay.
Great thing, lab for you guys. Put a coin on your hand. Everybody, you can do it. If you have a coin in your pocket right now, put a coin, or the person standing next to you, poke somebody like this. Hold it for a minute, and just start talking like we're doing now. You won't even feel it. It's phasing away. Phasic, phase away. Tonic, think pain. Toothache. Shit's gonna hurt all day long. Unfortunately, it's not going anywhere. Tonic is constant. Phasic phases away. Okay? Okay, here is another pathway. I got a 4.5 on this one too. No. All right. Anyways, this was light, I think, coming in. So it was cornea 1, pupil 2, anterior chamber 3, aqueous humor found in that area. I believe so, yeah. 4 the lens. 4 is the lens. 5, she marked me off. I put posterior chamber after the lens.
Because the posterior chamber comes, isn't it?
What was after that you put?
Vitreous body.
Because it's part of the anterior cavity.
I think it is a photo lens.
I think it's part of the anterior cavity.
Did we talk about that?
Yeah, I don't know.
Its
I missed.
vitreous body goes before and the
Oh,
posterior.
you know what? Then she mismarked me wrong because I had a little arrow.
And you switched
I meant to
it.
switch it.
Go tell her.
Lonnie, I'm no, okay, yeah, I had an arrow. I'd probably just be lazy with it. Okay, yeah. So it should be vitreous body, then posterior chamber, then the retina.
Wait.
Lens should be vitreous body. Okay? Then it should be the posterior chamber. Then it's going to be the retina. Okay? What's within the retina?
The cellular body.
Okay, remember there's an anterior chamber and a posterior chamber. There's both. And the anterior chamber is going to have the aqueous humor, and the posterior chamber is going to contain that vitreous humor. Okay?
Vitreous humor is the belly line, right?
Yes. That is correct. Okay, so within the retina, what is there?
The cellular body, the ligaments.
Think
and
color.
Optical.
Rods,
optical
cones, right?
discs.
Rods and cones. Okay? What I'm looking for is rods and cones because we're talking about vision, right? So when it goes in the retina, within the retina, we're going to have our rods. Okay? Now, we're going to hit the optic disc, right?
Is it rods and cones?
Wait, can you say that?
I had rods. She only had rods on there.
They're all next to each other, I think.
Yeah, they should be in the same area. There is an area that only has cones. I think it's the fovea centralis.
Yeah.
Yeah, the fovea centralis that has only cones.
Okay.
So if something were to ever happen to the fovea centralis, you would be completely colorblind, right?
What about, Didn't you say like the blind spot only has?
The optic disc has no rods or cones.
Oh, okay.
That's the blind spot.
Okay, wait.
The optic disc is your blind spot.
Okay.
I'm looking.
Make sure. Okay.
This would be your vitreous chamber, this whole thing right here.
Okay.
Okay.
So then it would be, you said, lens, then posterior chamber, then the vitreous chamber?
Yeah. Yeah. And so I flip-flop them, right?
Okay.
And then that's why she corrected it. Yeah, you're right.
Okay, no, okay, yeah, so
Yeah.
then that way.
Mhm. And then the fovea centralis, just know fovea centralis will have only cones. Only cones, okay? But that's different. Okay, so goes within the retina. Then I put rods, because she probably didn't have rods and cones, she probably only had rods. Rods. Then I put the optic disc, then I put the optic nerve, then I put the optic canal to the occipital lobe. Okay? Okay, so after the optic disc, we're going to hit the optic nerve. Okay? Then we're going to hit the optic canal. Then we're going to go to the occipital lobe, because that's where vision, right? So that's where we're receiving that information. Okay? Fair game questions. Let's see. We'll do it on the board. We're gonna go through a bunch because I think there's some that are definitely relevant, you know, to know, especially with the ear. Ear's fair game. So we're gonna do. What would you want to do first? Pathways, or do you want to do a?
Do you know the facial muscles,
Yeah.
like on the models?
Yeah.
Can we go over those?
Yeah. Yeah. Let's do that real quick.
She got new models.
She did.